Hello, Steelers fans. Welcome to the now post NFL draft edition of the Black and Gold Breakdown. The Pittsburgh Steelers officially wrapping up their 2024 draft class. And on paper, guys, I mean, this looks like one that can be one of the better draft classes in recent Steelers history. Um, Talked about it a little bit last night after day two. The Steelers didn't have to move up at all. They stayed put with all of their picks and ended up utilizing all of their picks. So they didn't trade any of them away for players and came away with a lot of incredible value, especially in the first 2 days. And on the final day, the three players they select across day three: guard Mason McCormick out of South Dakota, defensive end Logan Lee out of Iowa, and cornerback Ryan Watts out of Texas. And that brings together a final 2024 draft class for the Steelers, led by offensive tackle out of Washington, Troy Fautanu in the first round, West Virginia center Zach Frazier in the second round, and then a pair of third-round picks, Roman Wilson, receiver out of Michigan, and then Payton Wilson, linebacker out of North Carolina State over the first 2 days. Right now, I mean, you look at, again, on paper, we're not going to know, how good this draft class really is until, probably a few years down the line. But as of right now, on paper, the Steelers knocked this out of the park. And we talked about it really after day one, saying, wow, they didn't have to move up to get Troy Fautanu. That's incredible. And then just how the cards fell for the Steelers on day two, where Zach Frazier falls to 51, Roman Wilson falls to 84, Payton Wilson falls to 98. And so they get this incredible value over the first 2 days of the NFL draft, and now close out the day really telling us how they were going into this draft, and that was attacking the trenches, because they took another offensive lineman, taking Mason McCormick out of South Dakota. So now they have a hopeful future starter once it comes time to say goodbye to either James Daniels or Isaac Seumalo. And then they take Logan Lee. They needed some depth along the defensive line, so they take defensive end Logan Lee out of Iowa, who is part of one of the best defenses in the country. And then they close out their draft by taking Ryan Watts, the cornerback out of Texas. My guess is that they're going to transition him to safety, just based off his measurables and things of that nature. He's a taller cornerback, was really good against the run. The way he plays, it's similar to that of Deshaun Elliott, where he's a guy that they can put in the box to help give support against the run. He's a very willing tackler. That would be my guess as to how they utilize him. He said shortly after being drafted, the Steelers liked his versatility. He said he was more than willing to make a transition to nickel cornerback or safety. So I do think that year one, special teams guy. He has, I think, what was his real athletic score? I saw it posted somewhere. I think it was like 9.2 real athletic score. So once you get to day three, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for athletes. And the Steelers got a really good one at the tail end of the 6th round, and Ryan Watts out of Texas. So he'll be a special teams demon. And maybe he'll get some sort of shot to play defense, but looking at the Steelers' current remaining, holes, if you want to call them, after the draft, they still need a boundary receiver, more than likely. Again, Roman Wilson was predominantly a slot guy at Michigan. And I talked about it on here yesterday, and I wrote about it. He played some on the perimeter at Michigan, but was, predominantly a slot guy. He could play on the boundary at the NFL level, but I think that the Steelers would like to have him in the slot and go get somebody on the outside to be, that predominant boundary receiver. They cleared up the cap space to make some sort of move. They have about $18 million in cap space. Omar Khan talked about it in the press conference following the Steelers draft, addressing the fact that, yeah, we cleared up the cap space. We restructured Alex Highsmith's deal, to make a move should we want to. So I think that we're going to see the Steelers make some sort of addition via free agency or trade for a veteran receiver. And again, keep coming back to the Courtland Sutton stuff. The Steelers reached out to Denver both before and during the NFL draft about Courtland Sutton. Denver doesn't seem to want to budge because apparently they think that Bo Nix and Sutton can be, this iteration of Drew Brees and Michael Thomas for Sean Payton. I think that Courtland Sutton's great. I don't love Bo Nix. I didn't love that selection. And again, Courtland Sutton wants a new contract. He's got only $2 million in guaranteed money remaining on his current deal. Denver, they're very much at a crossroads with one another right now in terms of that getting done. And again, the Steelers reached out. I'm told the Los Angeles Rams were also calling Denver about Courtland Sutton. So he has his suitors, and the Steelers aren't the only team interested in trying to acquire Courtland Sutton. So that's something to remain keeping an eye on as we, keep making our way through the offseason. And I posed a hypothetical trade on Twitter after the fact. If you're the Steelers, offer a 5th and a 7th next year and Calvin Austin for Courtland Sutton. I think that's a pretty fair trade because Denver's not going to get, high-end draft capital for Sutton because, again, we talked about this plenty of times before in terms of the wide receiver market. His teammate Jerry Jeudy went for a pair of day 3 picks. Deontay Johnson went for a day 3 and a player. So I think a pair of day 3 picks and a player for Courtland Sutton, I think that's fair value. A 5th, a 7th, and Calvin Austin, a guy, by the way, I said it last night, would not be surprised in that situation, even if the Steelers can acquire Courtland Sutton without giving up Calvin Austin. I'm not sure Calvin Austin makes the team. Because at that point, you'd have more than enough receivers. Roman Wilson does all the slot stuff. Cordero Patterson does all the return stuff. Why would you really need him? So in this case, if I'm not sure that Calvin Austin's going to make the team, why not include him in a trade? Call Denver. Okay, how about this? 5th, 7th, Calvin Austin for Courtland Sutton. What do you say? And hell, if you want to make that 5th round pick conditional where it could become like a 4th round pick, just to, make it a little bit more enticing, say, okay, if Courtland Sutton has 70 catches and 7 touchdowns, then it becomes a 4th, something of that nature. But that's something to keep an eye on. And another thing that I posed last night, but maybe Chris Godwin becomes available out of Tampa Bay because they just drafted Jalen McMillan out of Washington. They already have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin on the roster. Something to pay attention to there. Plus, they have Trey McBride. No, that's a tight end. Who is the? Now I got to pull up the Buccaneers depth chart of who. It's Trey something. He went to Nebraska. Trey something. I'm gonna find it now because it's gonna bother me if I don't get it right. Because Trey McBride's the tight end from the Cardinals. I hate ads. Oh my goodness, close. Trey Palmer, that's who it was. Trey Palmer out of Nebraska. So you already had like 3 guys. Now you got 4. Maybe Chris Godwin, maybe that's something that could get done. So I think that's another name to pay attention to for the Steelers in terms of getting a veteran outside guy. And again, if you want to add to the conversation, by all means, you can leave a comment. I'll bring it up. We'll be able to talk about the Steelers draft, what moves that they still need to make. But I'm blown away by this draft, man. And I wrote about it last night, and I pointed it out last night. Like, in my lifetime, I can't recall them going just like 4 for 4 right out the gate with the amount of value that they got like they did in this draft. And people were saying, oh, 2023 they did. I think this is better than 2023, at least on paper. At least on paper, it could be. Because last year was great. They get Robert Jones, Joey Porter Jr., Keanu Benton, and then Darnell Washington. Those are 4 really good picks too. But I think that in terms of, again, on paper, this looks like it could be better. And so a great 2 drafts to open the Omar Khan era for Pittsburgh and completely just revamp the offensive line, completely just, you look at what this unit looked like with Mason Cole, Dan Moore, Chuks Okorafor, Kevin Dotson before he was dealt to the Rams, James Daniel, like now, and plus, with a lot of Trey Turner, Kendrick Green sprinkled in there. That's what Ben Roethlisberger's final year offensive line was Dan Moore, rookie Dan Moore. Who was the left guard? Was it James Daniels? I don't think James Daniels had come over quite yet. Who the hell was the left guard Ben's final year? But Kendrick Green, rookie Kendrick Green, was his center. And then Chuks at right tackle. And it was just a mess all over the offensive line. And Trey Turner was the right guard. I can't remember who the left guard was. It might have been. If you do remember, put that, because I can't remember. So to go from that to now having a potential, what I would assume would be a lineup of, from left to right, Roger Jones, Isaac Seumalo, Zach Frazier, James Daniels, Troy Fautanu, that's incredible. To be able to do that in like a calendar year, that's amazing. You look at from where the Steelers were, ahead of last year's draft, what they looked like roster-wise, offensively, to what they look like now, night and day. A quarterback room of Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, Mason Rudolph, and a bad offensive line, to now a quarterback room of Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, Kyle Allen, and a revamped offensive line that looks like it's going to run people over. Got to give all the credit in the world to Omar Khan, to Andy Weidel, to Mike Tomlin for putting together another really quality draft class for the second year in a row. Incredible job by them. Now, the Steelers do still have some obvious holes. We already touched on the receiver. Nickel corner is another one of those holes. Because right now they don't really have one. Darius Rush would probably be the guy who would step in there. Corey Trice if he's healthy. But again, we didn't see Corey Trice play as a rookie because he tore his ACL. So we don't really know what that's going to look like. And so I think the best option for them right now, well, there's a few of them. So reportedly, Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan met with Cam Sutton, who, if you remember, was released by the Detroit Lions after a warrant for his arrest was issued. He turned himself in. It was domestic violence related. His charge got lessened to a misdemeanor. I'm not going to pretend to know any more than that, but that's the case. Regardless, Khan and Tomlin reportedly met with Cam Sutton, so that could be a possibility of bringing him back to be the nickel corner. There's also guys like K'Wan Williams who are still available. Or they could go back to the well from last season and bring back Shandon Sullivan or Patrick Peterson. Those would be, I would say, one of those 4 are going to be brought back. Whether it's Cam Sutton, Patrick Peterson, Shandon Sullivan, or they go out and get a guy like K'Wan Williams. Robert says, this draft gets an A- for me for the Steelers. I think I would just give it a solid A. I'm not going to give it a plus because, and look, Mason McCormick might be awesome, but they had already added 2 offensive linemen. I would have liked to have seen them take a corner in that spot where they took him. But I think from the Steelers' perspective, they didn't want to not have any depth offensive line-wise because they saw what that looked like the past few years. So I can understand that line of thinking. And they want to have a guy already in line, ready to go whenever they have to move on from James Daniels and or Isaac Seumalo. So I can get the line of thinking, but I would have liked to have seen either they take a corner with that pick or they find a way to trade it for a veteran receiver. That would have been my preference. But I can understand the line of thinking with that. Not surprised that they took a guy like Logan Lee. Again, they needed depth along the defensive line, so I can understand that that line of thinking. And then closing it out with just a really athletic guy. By the way, Logan Lee also very athletic. If you look at his real athletic score, it's 9 point something out of 10. So they took athletes, and that again on day 3, that's what you're trying to find. So we'll see, but. They take Ryan Watts, they take Logan Lee, 2 really athletic guys at their respective positions. And I think Ryan Watts is going to be a special teams demon. So that'll be fun, especially to watch with the new kickoff rules and everything like that. Robert adds, McCormick was drafted because Daniels is a free agent next year, Samalo after 25 or 2. Yeah, so like I said, I can understand wanting to have a guy ready-made, who's already in the system, who can just step in and take over for James Daniels if he leaves, which, I mean, that draft pick, I would assume they're not going to look to bring back James Daniels. We'll see. But that draft pick, if they really believe in Mason McCormick, by the time that time comes, then yeah, we could very well see Daniels walk. Also, probably I said that to open up the show. What he does well very much matches up to what Deshaun Elliott does well, which is he's lanky and he defends the run. So I think that they'll probably convert him to safety. He said. He was talking right after, getting drafted, and he said the Steelers liked his versatility, and he was more than willing to make the transition to safety or nickel, whatever they needed him to do. So, like I said, he's incredibly athletic, so I have no doubt that he'll be able to do that. I think year 1, he's just going to be predominantly a special teams guy. If somebody gets hurt, then they'll plug him in. But I think year 1, predominantly special teams, while they try to convert him to safety, and then see how that plays out. Chase, 6th round was very underwhelming. I can get why people would say that, but at the same time, like the 6th round, you're looking for athletes. Logan Lee, very athletic on the defensive line. Ryan Watts, very athletic defensive back, versatile guy who they can try to move around the defense should that be a need, and a guy who's going to play a ton of special teams. So I get their selections there. I never have any high expectations going to, round 6, round 7. Like it's, more or less, it's just, what's the word I'm looking for? It's ceremonial at that point where, okay, there's 7 rounds, so we're going to take people. But round 6, round 7, you're just looking for athletes who you can utilize on special teams, more or less, for year 1. And then hopefully they can turn into something more. But I didn't mind the pick of Logan Lee because they needed depth on the defensive line. And Derek Bell of Steelers Now, my good buddy, made a good point. Maybe this pushes DeMarvin Leal off the roster because he hasn't done anything since they drafted him. I think a lot of that could be that he just doesn't fit what the Steelers do. I think that he just gets all out released ahead of the regular season because they already signed Dean Lowry as well. They bring in Logan Lee. Those two are very similar players in terms of their physical and athletic builds. So I think that Logan Lee, he'll make the roster. I think DeMarvin Leal gets cut. And then you still got guys that are like, an Isaiah Loudermilk who might be a depth player on the defensive line. But I think that Logan Lee makes the roster. DeMarvin Leal does not. And with Watts, he'll be a special teams guy. Chase adds, I feel like the pick was going to be Kalen Carson, but he was picked up by the Cowboys. Hey, man, I have a big soft spot for Kalen Carson. I did a feature story on him for USA Today, which you can go read. I actually mocked him to the Steelers. I was hoping that would happen because I like his play. But yeah, I think he'll do well in Dallas. And now, the Steelers end up with Ryan Watts, which again, I think they're going to convert him to safety and hit the free agent market to pick up somebody. So whether that's going to be Cam Sutton, whether that's going to be them bringing back Patrick Peterson or Shandon Sullivan, or they go out and get a guy like K'Wan Williams. They're going to bring in somebody to play in that slot corner spot. So could it have been Kalen Carson if he was still available? Yeah, sure. Ultimately, he wasn't. Dallas took him in the 6th round, so didn't end up coming to fruition. But no, I'm a big Kalen Carson guy, so very happy and hope that he does well in Dallas. But again, they're going to address multiple needs in free agency still. This is where we're going to start seeing that second wave of free agency. Teams after, like, once mid-March comes and all the big ones have been signed, teams start really focusing on the draft. After the draft, they see, okay, what holes do we still have and who's still available? Let's make some calls. So I would expect to see like a guy like Justin Simmons get signed soon. I would expect to see people like, Tyler Boyd, Odell Beckham, Stephon Gilmore, guys like that start to roll off the free agent market and end up with some teams here in the near future. Any undrafted guys that you'd like to see end up in Pittsburgh? I'd have to see the list. I stopped watching at like pick 240 to start doing this, so I'll have to roll through and see who didn't get drafted. But again, not off the top of my head. Did Kalen King get drafted? I feel he might. Did he get drafted? I know that Daquan Hardy, the one Penn State corner, got drafted by the Bills. But again, I would have to look to see the list of undrafted free agents to see who would really be worth pursuing. They'll probably bring in a fourth arm for camp like they usually do. They did that with Tanner Morgan out of Minnesota last year. Wouldn't it be funny if they brought in Sam Hartman? I don't think he got drafted. I didn't expect him to get drafted. Maybe somebody like a Keaton Slovis if he didn't get drafted. Again, I stopped watching around pick 240 to do this. So I would have to look at the list. Steelers should have went A.D. Mitchell and got Van Pran later. We'll find out. We'll certainly find out if that's the case. I'm more than happy with what their draft was. I like Cedric Van Pran going to Buffalo. Bills lost multiple offensive linemen this cycle because for cap reasons. But we'll see with A.D. Mitchell. I read his piece in the Players Tribune. It was a really nice piece. I hope that he's successful. Where did A.D. Mitchell go? I'm blanking right now. Sorry, my nose itched. Off the top of my head, I can't think of where A.D. Mitchell went. That's going to bug me. We'll see, though. I love the pick of Roman Wilson. And again, as I've said the past few days, the Steelers cleared cap space for a reason. There's going to be a veteran wide receiver brought in. Whether that be the trade for Cortland Sutton, because I was told this morning that the Steelers reached out not only before the draft, but during the draft about Cortland Sutton. The Broncos are being very bullish on it right now because Sean Payton thinks that Bo Nix and Cortland Sutton can be this iteration of Drew Brees and Michael Thomas. I love Cortland Sutton. I think he's great. I'm not a big Bo Nix guy, so I think that he's a little bit delusional with that. But keep an eye on the possibility of trading for Cortland Sutton still. And I propose this trade on Twitter just as a hypothetical. 2025, 5th and 7th round picks, Calvin Austin. Why not? I think that that's a trade that could work out. And if you want, make it conditional where if, Cortland Sutton has X amount of catches, X amount of yards, X amount of touchdowns, something like that, it can become a 4th round pick. But he's good. And a starting 3 of Cortland Sutton, George Pickens, and Roman Wilson, plus Pat Freiermuth, who's basically just going to be a slot receiver, I think, in this offense. That's plenty of guys to have out wide. So I would like that a lot. All right, everybody's telling me that Kalen King is still available. So I'm a Penn State fan, so I know a little bit more about them than the average guys. Johnny Dixon's still available. Johnny Dixon had a really good Senior Bowl. Kalen King did not. And that's why Kalen King, by the way, Kalen King was just bad this year. If he would have come out last year, I think he probably would have got drafted. It would have been like a day 3 selection, but he just wasn't very good last year. Johnny Dixon had a nice Senior Bowl, though. So that could be a name to watch for. I was mad about the taking Fautanu over Mitchell. Look, man, the Steelers' offensive line has been so bad over the last few years. And with this Arthur Smith offense, the offensive line has to be really good. Because it's going to be a run-first offense. It's going to be a lot of outside zone stuff. They're going to mix in some gap scheme stuff as well because Broderick Jones and Zach Frazier are both really good at pulling and utilizing gap-type runs. But the offensive line needs to be good. And Troy Fautanu, who was a consensus top 10 player, not just top 10 at his position, top 10 player in this draft, if he falls in your lap at 20 and you need help at tackle, you take him. So I understand wanting the flashy pick. I'll take the safer pick at offensive line and get a receiver later down the road, especially in an offense where, not to say that receivers aren't important. Obviously they are, but offensive line was much more of a need right now. Indy, that's where A.D. Mitchell went. Yes, thank you. Right after the Steelers, A.D. Mitchell got drafted. Yeah, he the Colts traded. Did they trade up for Mitchell? Because I think he went in the second round. So I want to say the Colts traded up for him, but I could be wrong about that. Brian Thomas Jr. is better than Fautanu. I don't think Fautanu would be a bust, man. That's one of those guys I think is just going to be really good. So I'm not worried about the selection of Fautanu. I think he's going to be great. I think of all the top 4 picks, I think it's going to be similar to last year, where I'm just not worried about any of them. Last year was Broderick Jones, it was Joey Porter, Keanu Benton, Darnell Washington. All of them were really good. I'm more than content with the guys that they took, and I think all 4 of them are going to be really good. Went to Penn State in the late 80s. That's awesome. Yeah, no, I graduated from Slippery Rock in 2021. So, yeah, familiar with, lived in PA my entire life. So it'll be fun. But I love this draft, guys. I really do. And again, I know that some people were a little bit underwhelmed by the day 3 picks. It's day 3. They kept beefing up, and I pointed out at the top of the show, I understand people being a little bit annoyed with the Mason McCormick pick in round 4 because they'd already taken 2 offensive linemen. A cornerback there would have been cool. But again, James Daniels set to be a free agent. They wanted somebody in-house ready to take over that spot. So I get it. I get the selection of Mason McCormick. I also get the selection of Logan Lee, an athletic defensive lineman where they needed depth. And Ryan Watts, a guy who's going to be a special teams ace, who in a pinch they can plug in at safety or plug in at cornerback. I think they're going to try to make a big transition to safety, though. Yeah, Rob. Yeah, I love Slippery Rock. Anytime I get to go back, I definitely try to take advantage of it. I actually gave a guest lecture last. I think it was in October. It was like 2 days before I moved back to Pittsburgh. So I gave a guest lecture for a sports media class, and it was very cool. So love Slippery Rock. Any chance I get to go back, I always do. I want Deebo Samuel, not going to lie. The Steelers reached out to the 49ers about Deebo Samuel. The asking price was way too steep, so they did not end up pulling the trigger on him. For the offense, it would make sense, but for the amount of money that they would have to pay him, I don't know how much the 49ers would take on of that, but I understand not wanting to give up too much for Deebo Samuel. I would be more than happy to give up a nice haul for Brandon Ayuk, but for Deebo Samuel, a guy who's not, like, his game isn't creating natural space, being a great route runner on the outside. It's being a multi-tool gadget guy who can be in the slot and be a threat to run the football out of the backfield. He's not a game-changing X receiver. So that wouldn't have necessarily filled the need for the Steelers as, like, a go-to, natural separator at the line of scrimmage. That's not what he does. He's very good at what he does, which is being maybe the most, like, versatile guy in the NFL in terms of being in the run game and the pass game, but he's not, a Devontae Adams. He's not a Jamar Chase. That's not what he does. What if they signed Daniels next year and Isaac the year after that? My guess is that they took McCormick with the idea that they're not going to re-sign James Daniels. Create more cap space. If you can have a guy on a rookie deal rather than pay more money for an older guy, I mean, that makes sense business-wise. How old's James Daniels going to be? I think he was drafted in 2018? So it's not like he's ancient, but this tells me that he's only 26. He'll be 27 in September. So, but having Mason McCormick there, how old's Isaac Seumalo? He's older. I know that. Seumalo is 30. So they felt comfortable with McCormick and they want to bring back Daniels and maybe try to move Seumalo. I don't know. But again, I think that they're more than content. We've seen teams do this before. Like the Eagles did it a few times in the draft where they had guys come in, be depth pieces for a year or two before taking over. So it's not as if they have to rush into it. This was very much a safe pick, have a guy in the building ready to go whenever they need it to happen. All right, let me field more of these comments here. Robert says the McCormick is great depth in case of injury. Yeah, exactly. So they don't have to necessarily worry about the offensive line stuff, which is good. And again, they recognize how horrible the offensive line was over the past few years and just wanted to make sure that that wasn't something they had to worry about. Debo feels Najee and Warren with the new O-line and Pickens on the outside is scary. The thing, again, George Pickens and Debo Samuel, not necessarily guys to be go-to receivers. And I think they're both very good number twos. Neither of them are like predominant X receivers who create natural separation, who are very good route runners. They both do specific things incredibly well. George Pickens, he'll win you 50-50 balls and turn them into 80-20 balls. You know, if you run like a deep out and need a crazy catch on the sidelines, or if you put him in the slot to run a slant or a drag, he'll catch it and take it 70 yards. But he's not a guy who's going to be, putting cornerbacks in blenders. He's not, a route technician or anything like that. He's, again, love George Pickens. He's very good in what his role is, but they still need a predominant like 1A guy to Pickens 1B. And again, with Debo, he's very good multi-tool guy out of the slot more than anything. He's another guy who's not, going to put you in a blender with his route running. I doubt they'll sign Daniels. McCormick will be on a rookie contract, so it's at least above. So if he's at least above average, they'll save money. Yeah, I think that's kind of the way of thinking. And Pittsburgh is projected to have like something like $85 million in cap space next year. So they're going to have money to work with. We'll just have to see what they end up doing with that type of money. And again, this is a big result of not paying any money to quarterbacks, which is, very rare that they have, Fields and Wilson and they're paying them pennies. So we'll see what they look like cap-wise next year. Worthy, am I a Steelers fan? Yes, I'm a Steelers fan. The past few days, that's really been annoying me. I keep going to click things and it right clicks. All right. K-Hen, all we need now is Stephon Gilmore, maybe big body receiver. Yeah, of all the corners that are available in terms of perimeter guys, I saw a bunch of people saying Xavier Howard. Xavier Howard was cut for a reason. It's because he's bad. He was not good with the Dolphins last year. I would rather them take a 1-year Band-Aid flyer on Stephon Gilmore than try and get any, squeeze whatever juice is left out of Xavier Howard. I think that orange has been squeezed of all its juice. So I think more than anything, they need a nickel guy, though. If they want to try to put Stephon Gilmore at nickel, okay. But I would rather, if you're going to get a nickel guy, get a nickel guy. Just bring back Cam Sutton at that point. I think that would be the better idea, where you have a guy who's played nickel consistently and has proven that he can do it. That would be my preference, at least. Okay. Robert's replying to Worthy here. Arthur Smith's system, quick passes in the middle of the field, run, tight ends. Yeah, I mean, what they're going to do, and I wrote a really long piece about it on Behind the Steel Curtain. I'll have to find it and plug it in the chat at some point. The Steelers are going to live off of running early, heavy personnel early, and setting up play action on 2nd and 1, 2nd and 2, 2nd and 3. If you go back to 2019 and 2020, Ryan Tannehill, the third most passing yards off play action, was a top 5 rated passer off play action in his 2 years with Arthur Smith as offensive coordinator. They're going to try to do that, which, again, is very welcome change from what Matt Canada was doing, which is nothing innovative, very predictable. We're going to see a lot of sets. We're going to see a lot of heavy sets. We're going to see a lot of 2 tight end sets. The Steelers very rarely used 2 tight end sets last year. The Falcons led the NFL in 22 personnel on early downs. 2 running backs, 2 tight ends. The Steelers didn't run a play out of 22 personnel last year. So we're going to see the offense is going to look very different. Let's see here. Skills 4. We don't necessarily need a 1A, 1B. KC has shown that you can win without one. The Steelers don't have Patrick Mahomes or Andy Reid. That is my easy rebuttal there. If you have Patrick Mahomes, having Patrick Mahomes is like having a bidet. He cleans up a lot of shit. That's basically a get out of jail free card. If you have an elite quarterback, they clean up a lot of things. we don't know what the Steelers quarterbacks are going to look like. We can be hopeful that Russell Wilson, improves and is, a top 15 quarterback, maybe. We can hope that if Justin Fields gets in and becomes a starter, that he can be a top 15-ish quarterback. I don't expect either of them to be top 10 or 12 quarterbacks. It's just not realistic. So the thing with Kansas City, yes and no. If you have Patrick Mahomes, you can get away with a lot of different things and a lot of different holes on your offense because he'll make you better and he'll get you there. The Steelers don't have Patrick Mahomes, nor do they have Andy Reid. So that's an easy rebuttal for me there. Brandon Ayuk will cost more as cap space. Well, his cap hit this year is about $14 million. They'll have to pay him, obviously, and he'll probably garner between 25 and 30. But at the same time, Brandon Ayuk is a much better receiver than Deebo Samuel. And I'm all for giving elite player money. And he is that. He's a top 10 receiver in this league. And the thing with the Steelers and, people who, will complain about money, you are what you invest in. And if the Steelers don't invest money into their receiving room, then fans can't complain if their receivers aren't very good. Especially if, you're a fan that says, oh, we shouldn't pay this guy X amount of money. Okay, you can pay a guy cheaper. You can find a cheaper guy, but guess what? You're going to get cheap guy production. So I'm all in favor of if you can get a blue chip player, you pay him blue chip money because that's you are what you invest in. So if you want high-end play, you have to pay high-end money. Ayuk is going to want A.J. Brown money 30 plus. Okay, fine. Give it to him. He's good. I'm fine with that. And here's the thing. I don't think he's going to get 30. I think he'll probably get like 28. That's just my guess. Now, the thing with the 49ers is they've waited to pay him. And guess what? Devontae Smith got paid. A.J. Brown got paid. I don't think that was a mistake by the Eagles. Not only despite the 49ers, but despite Dallas. Because CeeDee Lamb is holding out for more money. You don't think that the Eagles purposely paid both of their receivers more money to raise the price of CeeDee Lamb and to show and for CeeDee Lamb to be able to say, look, they just paid two of their receivers while paying Jalen Hurts. You can afford to pay me. And Jerry Jones is dragging his feet with it. And that's only helping out the Eagles because they paid their guys first. So in the end, it's going to look like a bargain. And you still got to wait for CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson for them to all get paid. So the Eagles and Howie Roseman once again look like geniuses because they paid their guys first. So if I had to guess, I don't think it's going to be quite $30 million a year for Brandon Ayuk. I'd say it's closer to like 28. But again, that's just my guess. Just my guess. Chase adds, in my opinion, I hate how the Steelers put themselves in certain situations without having the answer ready, i.e. the Deontay trade. Even though the flip side, you can say, or you can't have every answer. The thing with Deontay Johnson is that they weren't going to re-sign him to begin with. So they traded him and got something rather than go into next offseason knowing they weren't going to bring him back. So I can understand that line of thinking, especially in an offense where, it's going to be a more run-heavy look. And again, they still need that outside guy who can be, a 1A. So I get that. But I totally understand trading. I think I'm very much in the minority of people who saw the Deontay Johnson trade. Was like, all right, sure, that's fine. Because while I think that he was very underappreciated, if you weren't going to bring him back, you might as well get something for him. And this year's wide receiver market in terms of the trade market, they weren't ever going to get more than that. They got a cornerback who's going to start, and they got a day 3 pick. Okay, that's more than it's arguably a better trade than what the Broncos got for Jerry Jeudy. So I was one of the people who was okay with the Deontay Johnson trade because they weren't going to bring him back. Okay, we need to stop with this whole Justin Jefferson thing. That's not going to happen. The Vikings aren't trading Justin Jefferson. He's going to get a bag. He's staying in Minnesota. They're not trading him. I don't know where this line of Steelers fans came from. They're like, oh, just trade for Justin Jefferson. The Vikings aren't trading him. They'd be stupid to do it. They just drafted a rookie quarterback who now they have a guy on a rookie contract, and they have Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. They're not trading Justin Jefferson. He's not going anywhere. Any thoughts on moving Larry Ogunjobi? I figured that if they were going to get rid of Larry Ogunjobi, they would have just cut him. So I think he's here this year. I think he's staying. And I think your defensive line is going to be Cam Hayward, Keanu Benton, Larry Ogunjobi. And then you'll have guys like Logan Lee, Dean Lowry, Loudermilk who come in. I wouldn't mind them tapping back into, bringing in Marcus Golden again. I thought he was a really good depth signing. He did really well in his role last year. So I wouldn't mind that at all. And I don't mind Larry O. I would like to see them restructure his deal to where the money isn't so much against the cap because he is a little bit overpaid. And with Larry Ogunjobi, like he was either like against Cleveland, the first game against the Browns last year in week 2, phenomenal game. But there were games where it was like, where the hell's Larry Ogunjobi? We can't find. I think against Arizona, or was it? My point being, I can't remember the exact game at the top of my head. But there's games where he just really pops, and there's games where you wouldn't know he's there, which isn't good. He's also getting older, so I think that this will be the last year of Larry Ogunjobi. I don't think there's going to be much of a market for him because he's an older defensive lineman. But I think he'll be here throughout the duration. So you're confident they'll sign another receiver? Yes, I'm very confident in that. They cleared up $7 million in cap space the day before the draft started for that reason, to either trade for one or to sign one. And I'm still holding on to the thought of trading for Courtland Sutton. I just think it makes too much sense to not do. Plus, the Broncos not only took a receiver, they traded up to take Troy Franklin, who was Bo Nix's college teammate. It makes sense at this point for them to get another one. Then why would they draft Roman Wilson? To be the slot guy. They didn't have anybody reliable to put there. Now, Roman Wilson is boundary and slot versatile. He played on the outside a little bit in Michigan, but was very much more predominantly a slot guy at Michigan. So if they wanted him to make the transition to the outside, he can. But the way that Omar Khan was talking in the press conference after the draft saying, if we think it's right, we'll go get a receiver. We cleared up the money to do it. They're going to sign or trade for a receiver. Now, if they sign one, it's not going to be Tyler Boyd because Roman Wilson is younger Tyler Boyd in terms of his role. Like they brought him in to be their predominant slot guy, I think. But if they can trade for a Courtland Sutton, if they can trade for a Chris Godwin, I think they do it. I'd have to look at the full list of like available receivers right now, but like Odell Beckham's still out there. I don't think it'll be him. I just don't think that makes sense. I don't think he's at this point in his career. It's not worth it. Not worth bringing him in. So I'd have to look at the list of available receivers. If somebody wants to put like a list of free agent receivers in there for me, so I don't have to pull it up, that would be lovely. But they are going to bring in another receiver, whether it be via trade, which I think is what they're going to do, or if they sign somebody. But they've already signed 2 guys. That said, I don't think Quez Watkins is making the team because he's not very good. And he's just not a difference maker in anything that he does. So I don't think he's going to make the team. Sky Wells, hello. 2 years in a row, we're going to be a very dangerous unit. I think so, yeah. I mean, this is the second year in a row where the draft has looked very good on paper. And last year, it was very good on the field, too. So, and again, a lot of it was the football gods smiling upon them. Troy Fautanu dropped to them at 20 when people thought he was going to be a top 15 pick. Zach Frazier, they didn't have to move up to get him. Stayed put at 51. Roman Wilson, a lot of people thought he would be gone within the first 50 picks. Fell to them at 84. Payton Wilson, the consensus number 1 off-ball linebacker in this draft. Some people had him going in the first round. Fell to 98. So a lot of that was just the football gods smiling upon them, and ended up going very well for them. So, all right, let's see some draft picks that are going right now. Mr. Irrelevant this year, Alabama defensive back Jalen Key. Lovely. Western Kentucky quarterback Austin Reed goes to the Bears. Carter Bradley out of South Alabama signing with the Raiders. Jack Plummer, former Louisville. That's Jake Plummer's kid, I think, is signing with the Panthers. Keaton Slovis is signing with the Colts. So a bunch of UDFA guys quickly getting picked up. I can't wait to hear all this stupid banner of which one of these guys can be the next Brock Purdy. None of them. I hate like a month before the draft, and I hate the week after where we have to pretend that every player that got drafted is going to be a star. Maybe I'm just cynical. I don't know. If we are thinking we are in win now mode, why not get Simmons? Yeah, I think that Justin Simmons is very much in play here. Again, after that first wave, teams kind of go into dark mode and focus on the draft. And then after the draft, they kind of look and say, okay, what do we still need? Need safety? Let's call Justin Simmons. So I would expect very much for Justin Simmons to go somewhere. If it's Pittsburgh, cool. Him and Minkah Fitzpatrick are the only two safeties since 2018 to have 3 All-Pro selections. So they would get, 2 of the best safeties in the game in the same secondary. That would be pretty cool. I'd be pretty down with it. And in terms of the cornerback stuff, again, Gilmore would be fine. I wouldn't hate it, but I would rather just see them get a guy who plays nickel. Just go get Cam Sutton again. That would be my pick. That would be my pick. In terms of, let's keep going through these comments. Are you confident in Pickens? What do you think he will ask for and we will pay him? I'm not worrying about a George Pickens contract extension because that's not for a while. I think he's a very, 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 very good number 2. He needs to become a better separator and a better route runner and get a deeper route tree if he wants to be a number 1. That's my thoughts on him. He's much better than like Juju Smith-Schuster was when he was here in Pittsburgh. But Juju Smith-Schuster also had Antonio Brown on the other side of him to take away all the attention and help him get open. And he also had Ben Roethlisberger throwing him the ball. So Pickens is better than Pickens is Plexico Burress. I think that's a pretty good comp for him. He very, very good and very good deep threat. But, Hines Ward was more of, the 1A in that offense. There was a year where Burress and Ward each had 90-plus catches. I think that was, 03? Now, they went 6-10 that year. But, yeah, I think that Pickens is more of like a Plexico Burress type who's incredibly good. By the way, Plexico Burress never made a Pro Bowl. That surprised me to find out. I thought he did. I think that's more of what Pickens is. It's more like a Plexico Burress, if that makes sense. Pearl Jam. If we don't get a wide receiver, we are screwed. They're going to get one. Whether that be via trade. And again, if you're just joining this morning, I was told that the Steelers and the Rams both reached out to Denver before and during the draft about Courtland Sutton. I think that's something that can still get done. They're being bullish on it, but if they're not going to pay Courtland Sutton, he wants to go somewhere that'll pay him because he's only got $2 million in guaranteed money left on the deal. So that's something that I would pay attention to. They're going to get a receiver. Khan has a post-draft plan. Chill and wait. He has been on it thus far. Yeah, again, every team in the league, like I've said a few times, once like end of March, beginning of April hits, they don't worry too much about free agency. They're going to key in on the draft. And then like after that first wave, after like all the big names are signed or re-signed, whatever happens, everything kind of goes dark for the most part on free agency. Excuse me. And then they focus on the draft. And then once the draft is done, they look, okay, what are our holes? Let's go back to free agency and see who's still available. So now the thing with the safety market is that there was like legitimately like 15 good starting caliber safeties that all hit the market this year. And unfortunately for them, that took away their value. Because if there was only, 2 or 3 really good safeties, then you can afford, they can, drive up the price of one another. Right now, their safeties were a dime a dozen this free agency, so none of them are getting big deals. I think Xavier McKinney got a really nice deal from Green Bay, but he's really the only one who got anything of note. So, I mean, if you're a Justin Simmons, if they can get him for, 1 year, $9.5 million with incentives that can take it up to like 11.5, cool. But we'll see what happens with the safety stuff, what happens with the corner stuff. And again, if I had my pick, it would either be Cam Sutton, K'Wan Williams, guys who play nickel. K'Wan Williams is a little bit older, though. He's 32, so it would definitely only be a 1-year deal. But I would prefer Cam Sutton on like a 2-year deal with an option after this year to opt out if he's not very good. He plays nickel. It just makes sense to get a guy who specializes in that. We should have drafted more receiver for cheaper and took shots. Again, man, like I'm fine with what their draft with what they did in the draft. If they wanted to take a receiver in the 4th round, I wouldn't have hated it, but I'm cool with what they did. They got stronger up front, which has been their Achilles heel over the past 3 seasons. And their offensive line on paper looks really freaking good, and I'm happy about that. And again, they'll be able to address receiver with a trade or free agency. I'm totally cool with how they handled it. Especially in an offense where, you just need, they're going to run the ball. They still need that outside guy, but I'm fine with how they handled it. Agree that Pickens currently is a great 50-50 ball guy, but needs to improve at route. Yeah, I mean, that was the biggest knock on him coming out of school, was that he's just not a very good route runner. And again, not knocking George Pickens. I think he's terrific, but he's just not a number 1 receiver. I think that he's arguably the best number 2. Well, no, because there's Jalen Waddle, there's Devontae Smith, there's T. Higgins. He's a very, very good number 2, though. And guys like Smith, Waddle, Higgins, I mean, those are guys that would be number 1 receivers on any other team that didn't have, Tyreek Hill, AJ Brown, or Jamar Chase opposite of them. So some teams are just lucky enough to have 2 number 1 guys. One of them just has to be, 1B to the 1A. So we'll see. If they can't land Courtland Sutton, forced to get Ayuk. Well, I mean, if the 49ers aren't willing to trade Ayuk, then they're kind of SOL there. But the 49ers also drafted 2 receivers. They took Ricky Pearsall and Jacob Cowing. So they're gearing up to trade at least one of them. I don't think they're going to get rid of both of them. That wouldn't make sense. I think they're trying to trade Debo because they want to re-sign Ayuk because they know that he's better. But at the same time, as my friend Eric Crocker from the Locked On 49ers podcast pointed out, what Debo does for their offense in specific would be harder to replace than what Ayuk does for their offense. Ayuk's the better receiver, but Debo's versatility in the run game and everything, especially if you look at like EPA per play stuff, like their offense is very different without Debo on the field. So I could see them moving Ayuk still. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. I think the 49ers drafted 3. Did they draft 3 receivers? I didn't look at their entire draft class. Like I said, I came in here to start recording at like pick 240. So I'm not entirely sure. Let's look at some UDFAs. Former Toledo defensive tackle, Judge Culpepper. That's a tremendous name. Goes to the Buccaneers. Colorado receiver Xavier Weaver to the Cardinals. Boise State running back George Halani to the Seahawks. None of these fools are signing with the Steelers. Sam Hartman to the Commanders. Well, there goes that idea. Sam Hartman to the Commanders, everybody. Let's see if there's anything under that. Anybody going to the Steelers? I'm not seeing any. I'm telling you, none so far that I'm seeing in terms of UDFA signings for the Steelers. So we'll see. We'll see. Pearsall reminds me of Ayuk. Respectfully, I don't see that at all. Pearsall's a slot guy. Ayuk is a very much like perimeter, natural separator, incredible route runner. Really good with the ball in his hands after the catch. I don't think they're very similar at all. I think that if anything, Pearsall is a Debo Samuel replacement if they do trade him. Roman Wilson, my bad. Roman Wilson can block and he fits Smith's scheme. Yeah, I mean, if you look at the somebody posted a few highlights of him just shoving dudes into the dirt. It was nice. I saw somebody say like, all these dudes just feel like Steelers. Fautanu grew up a Steelers fan. And who else said that they were a Steelers guy? Logan Lee said he was a Steelers fan. Roman Wilson just feels like a Steelers receiver. Payton Wilson. I'm trying to think of like a good Steelers comp for Payton Wilson. Lawrence Timmons, maybe? But Peyton Wilson's incredibly fast. His 40 time was faster than Luke Kuechly's. And by the way, a lot of people comping him to Luke Kuechly in terms of his football IQ, how fast he is on the field. If he meets his potential, he might be the best player out of this draft class for the Steelers. Maybe the best player overall. So that'll be fun. Ooh, goodness gracious. Sorry, adjusting my knee. Roman Wilson reminds me of Hines Ward. Yeah, I mean, they're both, I think the blocking thing that's a thing too. Like, I'm not picking on you, I promise. But like, anytime like somebody sees a receiver block once, like give them one hard block. Oh, Hines Ward. I'm like, all right, dude, that's fine. Who was Mike DeFabo of The Athletic like released like a joke mock, and he said that in the 6th round the Steelers will take like a small town or small school defensive lineman that everybody's uncle immediately compares to Brett Kiesel. That made me laugh. But I'm excited about this draft class, very much so. Especially the offensive line. Like we talked about it already, where Fautanu and Frazier are going to start day one. Somebody had asked me last night, I think it might have been, who was it? Was it Rob? Might have been Rob. Asked me last night, like, hey, do you think Dan Moore's going to start again this year? My answer is no. I was surprised when he started over Broderick Jones last year. I would be surprised tenfold if Troy Fautanu doesn't start over Dan Moore. I would be very surprised. He's head and shoulders better than Dan Moore in every aspect of the game. So I think they'll hold on to Dan Moore throughout this year, just in case one of them goes down for any sort of period of time. He's not starting. At least he shouldn't. And if he does, there's some serious questions that I need asked, because that would just be malpractice. More in the sense that Pickens and Johnson had no interest in blocking. Well, Pickens does, except against the who was it? Against the Colts, where that like one clip went viral because it looked like he backed off blocking. Pickens is more than willing to be a physical guy. I think that play was blown out of proportion. Deontay Johnson, no, he's not a blocker. But at the same time, a lot of receivers aren't. That's some guys are good at it. Some dudes don't bother. Like, no one's asking Jamar Chase to block, nor should they. That shouldn't be his responsibility as one of the best receivers in the league. Some guys are good at it, and that's cool. It's not a requirement by any means. It's fun to see in guys. Now, Brandon Ayuk, he's a good blocker. So that's another added capability that makes Steelers fans like him. It would make me very happy if he came. I see Dan Moore traded or cut before the season starts. I don't think they're going to trade him. I don't think they're going to cut him. I think they're going to keep him throughout the year. This is the last year of his contract. If somebody gets hurt, they can just plug him in for a little bit. They don't really have if Spencer Anderson makes the roster, then I suppose they could go that route. So maybe. But if I'm guessing, I think Dan Moore's there. But I could be wrong. I mean, they traded Kevin Dotson last year. They traded Kendrick Green last year. They got compensation for Kendrick Green. That's incredible. So maybe that's something to keep an eye on once we reach like after the preseason's done and like that week before the season starts. Pay attention to that. We'll see how camp goes. Ward played without an ACL. Yes, he did. And he was pretty damn good. So I'm not worried about Payton Wilson. By the way, all that injury stuff really stems back from 2021 and beyond. He played in 11 games in 2022, played in 12 games in 2023. I'm not worried about it at all. He tested like a freak at the combine. He had a hell of a week at the Senior Bowl. Not worried about it at all. I'm very surprised that he fell all the way to 98. But if you're a run-heavy team, you have to block at receiver. Yeah, that's true. That's a fair point. Fair point. I hear you. I'm just refreshing Twitter to see if anything else crazy is happening. Did we see any Steelers get signed? Pelissaro's tweeting like a madman right now, by the way. Credit to Tom Pelissaro of NFL Network. Let's see if anybody became a Steeler. Gabriel Murphy signed with the Vikings. Oh, you know what? Shout out to Gabriel Murphy. I'm friends with his agent, and I very much am happy to see him get signed by a team. His twin brother, Grayson, did he get drafted? Somebody look up if Grayson Murphy got drafted. But Gabriel Murphy, edge rusher out of UCLA, he's now a Viking. So I'm going to have to shoot his agent a text. Good for him. Trey Knox, South Carolina tight end, also a Viking. Vanderbilt punter, Matt Hayball, is now a Saint. Good stuff. Steelers fans are going to love Payton Wilson. I loved him at the Senior Bowl. That's again, for anybody who's like new to me, very casual college guy. I cover the NFL for a living. I don't really pay too much attention on Saturdays. That's kind of like my me day. I'll have it on because like I'm a Penn State guy, so I'll have it on, but I'm not diving into, the tape of 6th round guys out of roast beef tech. Like that's just not my thing, man. So I didn't know too much about him. But once I saw him at the Senior Bowl, he popped off the field, got to, learn a little bit more about him. I didn't even bother thinking about what he would look like in a Steelers defense because I didn't think he would be there. So the fact that they get him, that's huge. Absolutely huge. All right. That's who are we talking Steelers? Okay, so Brian says Steelers freak. I agree. That's why I think he got hurt so much. He plays hard and hits hard. Referring to Wilson looking like Jack Lambert on tape. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't alive to see that in color. So I can't really have like too much of a nuanced opinion about that. Truly believe Boyd will lower hit. The thing with that is that Roman Wilson fills the need that Tyler Boyd would have, because I think they're going to put Roman Wilson in the slot. So there's no need to get Tyler Boyd. I don't think that once they drafted Roman Wilson, that was the final nail in the Tyler Boyd stuff. I don't think that he'll be a Steeler. If anything, he might just go back to Cincinnati and they'll just run four wide receiver sets with Chase, Higgins, Jermaine Burton, Tyler Boyd. Could he go somewhere else? Yeah. I think he's probably going to, but I think that idea of going back to Cincinnati makes me laugh. So we'll see. Worthy doesn't like anything the Steelers did. I really like Zach Frazier. I think that he'll be better than Jackson Powers Johnson. I think Jackson Powers Johnson will be good too, though. The only thing with JPJ is that he had some issues snapping from what I saw. There were some snaps that it wasn't Mason Cole bad, but there was some that I saw in person in Moby. I was like, okay, that's somewhat concerning, but he looked awesome. I think he's going to do well in the pros. I think Zach Frazier will be better. Just my opinion. Tall, lanky, crazy motor, big brain. Yeah, I mean, hey, I'll take it. He has that like linebacker crazy look in his eye, by the way, if you see him up close. Oh, cool. We got some updates on some guys who are UDFAs. Dallin Hooker, Josh Proctor. Josh Proctor. That's a receiver, right? Maybe not. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know who any of these people. Gabe Hall. That's a defensive tackle. I think I know that one. Jalen Hooker. What did Jalen Hooker play? You'll have to update again. Most of these guys. No idea. Ohio State safety. That's Josh Proctor. Yes, he was at Mobile. I remember seeing him. He was at the Senior Bowl. I'm surprised he didn't get drafted. And by the way, there's some guys like who go on like day 3 that like even Mike Renner on the Bleacher Report stream is like, who the hell is that? Like, yeah, dude, I don't know. I'll have to look at the UDFA stuff because again, I'm not I don't know 400 college football players off the top of my dome to know a bunch of stuff about all of them. Let's see who else. Oh, here we go. Frank Gore Jr. to the Buffalo Bills. I don't think he'll make the team. He's not very big and he's slow. So I don't think that he's going to make it. I'm going to have to write about that, aren't I? Great. Fantastic. Write about Frank Gore Jr. Yeah, I don't think he's going to make the team. He's not very big and he's not fast. So much coffee has been fueling me these past few days. By the way, take this opportunity. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already and you like the Steelers content and whatnot and overall NFL content, please subscribe. You know, in terms of content, I've done a lot of Steelers videos lately just because it's NFL draft time. Throughout the rest of the offseason, we'll do 1 Steelers stream a week, maybe 2. If the chat's constantly crazy like this, I'll up it to at least 2 a week. In season, it'll be at least 2 streams a week. Usually like the day after the game. So either Monday, Friday, or Tuesday, depending on what day they play. And then, the Friday before, the Saturday before, maybe somewhere in there. And then you can catch every episode of my podcast, The Pump Fake, which is my national NFL show. I stream that here. Off-season wise, same thing. Once a week in the off-season, twice a week during the regular season. Have a bunch of really good media personalities on. My buddy Matt Verderam from Sports Illustrated, Ty Dunn from Go Long, Mike Tanier, Aaron Schatz. Just a really good collection of my friends throughout the NFL media sphere that come on throughout the season, throughout the off season. So if that sounds like something that's up your alleyway, absolutely please subscribe. That would make my little heart very happy. And then in terms of Steelers stuff, Ton of really good Steelers content creators and beat writers. We'll get, guys like Nick Farbaugh, Derek Bell, Alan Saunders, all on from Steelers Now, Zach Smith from Steelers Now. I'm going to try to get my buddy Chris Carter from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette to hop on with me. So if all of that sounds good to you in terms of content and whatnot, absolutely hop in. And then when I have players on, I was thinking about this, talking about it last night. You guys can let me know in the chat if that's something that you would like. YouTube is now giving me the option to do similar to like a Patreon. I have like a paid tier. So if you guys would like, if you'd be interested in it, I'd probably do like a $3 a month thing, because I think that's the minimum that you can make. When I have players on, when I have, my buddies from different media and whatnot on, if you have specific questions you want asked and answered by players, media, anything of that nature, if you join the paid tier, then you can do that. And if you want any other perks to come with it, let me have the ideas of what you would want to be in that paid tier, and I will absolutely do that. If there's not a big audience for it, that's okay. By no means am I going to like force that upon anybody. That's just an idea that was presented to me from YouTube, so I figured that I would pose it. And if it's not something that gains a lot of interest, I'm not going to cut back on the content or anything like that. I'm totally fine doing this. So just if there are any ideas that you have in terms of if you'd like to be able to ask players questions, if you'd want to ask or have your questions asked on air to players and media, that's part of the paid tier. That's part of what it would be. So that's just an idea to float out. And if there's interest in it, I will do it. All right, let me read off some of your comments, because I know that you guys are getting them in here. I like Roman Wilson and the corner pick, but everything else is good. Everything else is good, but could have been better. Yeah, I think Roman Wilson's going to be good. Ryan Watts, I think they're going to move him to safety. He's going to be fun to watch on special teams. And who was he could be like a Trenton Thompson type player, where like if he has to get plugged in at safety, maybe he'll pop off and, have an interception and play well. I'd like to see that from Ryan Watts. That would be good. Let's see. After 3 years of patchwork, they finally addressed the offensive line with serious moves. Yeah, there was a lot of, Kendrick Green. There was a lot of Mason Cole, a lot of Trey Turner. It was a lot of just, like you said, patchwork. And it wasn't good. So happy to see that they're heavily investing in the offensive line to make sure that they have pillars at left tackle, center, and right tackle. And then they bring in a guy like Mason McCormick who can take over for Samalo and or James Daniels when the time comes. So pretty happy about it. Worthy. I'd much rather have Brian Thomas Jr. Yeah. Look, man, Dan Moore's bad. If Dan Moore would have been a starter on the offensive line, that would have been a problem. But Dan Moore's not good. So that's not something that I would have enjoyed exploring. I don't think that's something that many fans would have enjoyed exploring. I'm not too huge on Brian Thomas Jr. I think he's fine. I don't think he's going to – I think Trevor Lawrence will make him look better than what he is. Not to say that he's terrible, but like he's fine. Again, I wouldn't have been like miserable if they took him, but I'm happy with the haul that they got in terms of getting Fautanu in the first round, Frazier, Wilson, and the other Will, yeah, both Wilsons. We're getting blown up here. In terms of, let's see if Pelissaro, let's see if the Steelers sign any free agents yet. Let's see. I'm not seeing any Steelers guys. Let's see. Jalen Allen to the Broncos, running back Blake Watson from Memphis to the Broncos, former Illinois State quarterback Zach Anixtad to the Buccaneers. What's up with Illinois State and all their damn... No, that's Northern Illinois I'm thinking of maybe. Yale wide receiver Mason Tipton. Oh, like Sweet Life of Zach and Cody. London Tipton. Yeah, no Steelers moves that are being talked about, at least not by Pelissaro. I haven't seen any Steelers transactions in terms of the UDFA world. So trying to keep refreshing what Pelissaro's tweeting out. Let's see here. Hold on. Wide receiver Tariq Owens, son of... Okay, that's fun. Terrell Owens' son is signing with the 49ers. How fun is that? He probably won't make the team, but that's, fun little story. That's another thing, man. Like, anytime I see one of those things where it's like, oh, this guy's son who played here a bunch of years ago signed as an undrafted free agent. Like, it's a fun story, man. The guy's probably not going to be good. Like that signing right there was very much just like, oh, okay, we really liked Terrell. He's a legend here. We'll sign his son as like a nice little favor. Same thing with the Bills. Frank Gore was there for a little bit. Okay, we'll sign Frank Gore's son. None of it's going to go anywhere. But still no moves from the Steelers that I'm seeing. No undrafted free agent signings yet for Pittsburgh. At least not from the mouth of Tom Pelissaro or Mike Garafolo. Oh, we got another one in. Let's see. Former USC, whatever. What is this? Austin Jones is signing with the Commanders. I don't know who that is. Running back. Okay, USC running back. Unless you're Marvin Harrison Jr. Yeah, that's very true. And again, like guys like Marvin Harrison Jr. or Joey Porter Jr. or Jeremiah Trotter's son got drafted to the Eagles. Like those are actual players who are going to be good at this level. If you just happen to be like, if Frank Gore Jr.'s last name was Smith, he's not getting an NFL invite because he's not an NFL player. He's under 200 pounds and runs like a 4.6 something 40. He's not an NFL player. Same thing if Tariq Owens was Tariq Davis, he's not getting an NFL invite because he's not an NFL player. Did Jerry Rice's son get drafted? Where'd Brendan Rice go? Anybody know? Might have to hit, I might do a quick Google search here. See where Brendan Rice went. And by the way, guys, if you could just give me like a quick yes or no in the comments, if you're still in here, if you would be into the idea of the $3 paid tier. If not, by no means am I going to force that upon you guys. I'm just throwing that out there because it would be an opportunity for you guys to get, more content. Have your questions asked to NFL players, NFL media from, different media spheres and whatnot. If that's something that gets enough attention and want, then I will do it. If not, totally okay. And I'm saying yes to the Chargers. The Chargers would do it, wouldn't they? I'm not a big Brendan Rice guy. Like he's built like a Greek god, but he's not I'm not necessarily into that. Nothing he did blew me away. At the Senior Bowl, like he ran like a whip route. He ran the slowest whip route I've ever seen in my life in one-on-ones in the red zone. And somebody clipped it on Twitter. It's like, oh, look at this whip route. And then everybody like quoted it. It was like, dude, that's awful. It's not his game. Hi, Adam. Oh, Adam says, I think the Steelers will trade for Courtland Sutton. If I had to put a percentage on it right now, I'd say like 55 yes, 45 no. Just because I feel like it's just the Broncos being pains in the butt, hoping that Courtland Sutton budges. I don't think he's gonna, because I think he wants paid, and because he's only got $2 million left on his contract. And you look at all the quarterbacks that he's played with. It's been a lot of Jeff Driscoll's, Case Keenum, Joe Flacco. Last year with Russell Wilson, he had a career-high 10 touchdown receptions. They had chemistry. They have a really good relationship. I could see why he would want out of Denver, first of all, and Pittsburgh would make sense to me. So if I had to put money on it, I would say yes. I think that they will. One UDFA that I've got my eye on is Joey Porter Jr.'s cousin. Why not? That's Sean Stevens, cornerback, Ferris State. Omar Khan, can you hear me now? Didn't even know he had a cousin in this draft class. That's another thing that the Steelers do that really annoys me. Like Connor Hayward. He doesn't need to have a roster spot. I'm sorry. I know a lot of people like Connor Hayward. He doesn't do anything for me. He's there because he's Cam's brother. Same thing. Remember when they had Trey Edmonds on the roster? He was like their fifth running back. He was there because he was Terrell and Edmonds' brother. The same reason Derek Watt took up a roster spot for like 3 years. He was there because he was TJ's brother. I hate when they do that. It's very much just a nice gesture to one of their star players. None of them are, I don't like it. It's like being Michael Jordan's son. Yeah. His son, I remember when his son played at Illinois. He was like fine. What do you think of Xavier Weaver from Colorado? I don't know a damn thing about him. If I'm being completely honest with you, man. Like I said, earlier in the show, I'm a very casual college football guy. If these guys are going as undrafted free agents, I don't know anything about them. I know enough to get me through the first 4 rounds on guys. Once we get past that, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert. I have a lot of friends who are very heavy into the college football sphere. My friend from Fantasy Bros, Thor Nystrom, does his big 500 board every year. He's tremendous. So I defer to guys like him, my friend JP Acosta from SB Nation. Like, there's plenty of guys who go really in depth with college football that I defer to, that I highly recommend to you guys. Adam says they need a number 2 receiver. What do you think that they will do? Courtland Sutton makes sense to me, man. I think that ultimately, if I had to put money on it, that will be the move. And I think that he would be, kind of the 1A and Pickens would be the 1B. I'm trying to think of like other receivers that they could realistically get. You know what? Here, let's have this conversation real quick. I think, and I talked about it last night at like 2 a.m. when we were doing the show, Devontae Adams is going to get traded at some point this year. That's my big guess. I think that would be pretty fun for the Steelers. He's 32. The Raiders would have to eat like half of that contract because the Steelers aren't paying the like $32 million he has that he's owed this year. But I think that's a name to at least watch for to get traded. So keep an eye on that. I think the Steelers would be a fun team for that. Chris Godwin too, because the Buccaneers now have like 4 receivers that are good. They have Mike Evans. They have Godwin. They just drafted Jalen McMillan. They have, again, I forgot his last name. It's Trey Palmer from Nebraska. So they got 4 receivers that are pretty good. I wouldn't be surprised if Chris Godwin becomes available. Tilla says, do you think Austin will play less with Wilson in the house, or will he maybe switch to more of an outside? No, I think that Calvin Austin is either getting traded or just getting cut. I think that he will be involved in some sort of trade to bring in another receiver, or he's just going to get outright cut. Because Roman Wilson's here now to do all the slot stuff. Cordero Patterson's here now to do all the returning stuff. Calvin Austin isn't really needed. I think a lot of Steelers fans like Calvin Austin a lot more than the Steelers like Calvin Austin. That was a nice thought. But I think that it would just make sense to bring in a guy to put on the outside. And if that includes, and again, I proposed a trade earlier, 5th and 7th round picks in 2025 and Calvin Austin for Courtland Sutton. Fine by me. Calvin Austin doesn't really do anything in the offense. They don't use him. So I don't see a reason to hold on to him. He's fast. There's a lot of guys that are fast, Calvin Austin doesn't really do anything for me. I think that they should just get rid of him. Agree about Hayward. Yeah, again, it's nothing like malicious or anything. I don't have anything against Cam or Connor Hayward. It's just if Connor Hayward wasn't Cam Hayward's brother, he wouldn't be there because he's not very good. Austin will lose playing time. Again, I think they're just going to get rid of him. I think that's going to be one of the surprises for people is that Calvin Austin won't be here next year or be in Pittsburgh this coming season. I think we rank. I don't know what that says, man. I'm sorry. I can't decipher that. Something is up with the Steelers and Austin. Yeah, I think that they're just going to get rid of him. I said it last night. I think that the final wide receiver room in my head looks like this. Courtland Sutton, George Pickens, Roman Wilson as your top 3, Van Jefferson, and then Pat Freiermuth will be like your 5th guy. If they keep Calvin Austin, sure. But like, remember a few years ago, Eric Ebron was basically just their 5th receiver, So I think that they can just get rid of Austin and that's that. I don't think Quez Watkins is making the team. Quez Watkins isn't good. I don't even know why they signed him. That's a nothing signing. He's not going to make the team. Doesn't make sense to me. Good Lord, there's a lot of comments here. Okay, hold on. Let me get through all these real quick. Chase says, Adam said he didn't want to be traded. Ah, well, good to know. Call me in week 7 when they're 2-5. Will Fautanu play left or right tackle? If I had to guess right now, right tackle. I think Colin and Tomlin have both been pretty adamant that they want to move Broderick Jones back to the left side. Fautanu is very, what's the word I'm looking for? Versatile across the offensive line because Washington cross-trained other offensive linemen during practice. So he can move to the right side. He said that he can play just about any position on the line and be comfortable. Every wide receiver in the roster besides Pickens is a number 4, not counting Roman Wilson. Yeah, I mean, like I said, they didn't do a lot of. It was more depth pieces than anything. So we'll see. Hi, Keaton. The Steelers get Sutton, who's the Steelers number 3. Roman Wilson. Van Jefferson's not. He's a fine number 4 who serves a purpose. He's not anything special. He'll be the number 4. Agree with Austin. Yeah, I think he's gone. We need to stop with this. It's not happening. They're not trading for Jamar Chase. They're not trading for if there's an elite receiver in the NFL right now outside of Brandon Ayuk, the Bengals aren't going to trade Jamar Chase to the Steelers. I can't tell if that was a serious comment or not, but it irritated me. All right. Bear with me for like 10 seconds. I'm going to go run and get the charger. Didn't expect to be doing it this long, but you guys, thankfully, keep commenting. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to throw a little countdown on. I will be back in literally before the 30-second timer is up. So I will return shortly with my computer plugged in. Okay, right at the buzzer. Okay, more comments came in. Lots of comments came in. Okay. Yeah, okay, I figured. Yeah, that's not going to happen. Jamar Chase isn't coming to Pittsburgh. Sorry. I will disagree with this. Yes, he is. If I woke up tomorrow and found out that the Steelers acquired Jamar Chase for 2025, 26, and 27 first, okay. Maybe that's just me being dumb. But he's worth a lot. Maybe 3 ones is a little bit of a reach, but a guy like that, you move heaven and earth for. I guess we can check and see if they've signed anybody yet. Let's see. Any unrestricted or undrafted free agents on the board for Pittsburgh? Where did the Pelissero tweets go? There we go. Okay. Mississippi State wide receiver Ladatrick Griffin to the Raiders. Oh, hey, somebody asked about Gabe Hall. He's an Eagle. Signed with the Eagles. Defensive tackle Gabe Hall. The Janky twins, South Dakota State legends and wide receivers Jaden and Jackson are both signing with the Texans. Cool. LSU safety Andre Sam is signing with the Eagles. Good Lord. $20,000 signing bonus and $150,000 guarantee. How good was this guy that he got all that? Interesting. Tennessee wide receiver Ramel Keaton to the Raiders. Raiders have been pretty active in this side of things. Yeah, this is a hi Joseph, good to see you. Win our awesome draft. Yes, absolutely. Second year in a row where I'm coming away from the draft yeah, that was great. On paper, I think that this year's class will be better than last year's. I think that Fautanu and Frazier are both going to be great. I think that Roman Wilson is going to be a really nice piece at receiver, and I think that Payton Wilson is going to be the steal of the draft, not just for Pittsburgh, but across the league. Yeah, sorry, Pearl Jam. Here's the thing. If I woke up tomorrow and found out that they did that for Jamar Chase, I'd be like, okay, 3 ones is a lot. Probably a little bit dumb, but at the same time, I'd be pretty happy. Again, never going to happen, though. Look, man. Hi, Rob. First of all, thank you for tuning in. Rob says Connor Hayward has made some timely plays, good hands, Swiss Army. I can count on my one hand the plays that Connor Hayward has made that I remember. The touchdown catch against Atlanta. And I want to say he made a catch on the drive against the Raiders on Christmas Eve a couple years ago. And that is all that I can remember Connor Hayward has done. He's there because he's Cam's brother. He's very forgettable. Again, no offense to Connor Hayward. Keaton says, when are we getting the Steelers draft class WWE comps? Oh, that's something stupid I could do. Yeah. Thanks for the content idea. I'll get that on Behind the Steel Curtain by tomorrow. Oh, who would that be? Troy Fautanu. Yeah, because it's funny because the Steelers offense now has 2 Samoans and a guy named Roman. So they basically have the bloodline. Acknowledge them. Yeah, that's something that is just stupid enough for me to do. Absolutely. I'm definitely in for that. Forgive me for downing coffee. The past 3 days I've been writing and doing content nonstop. So I'm sleepy. But I'm grateful. And thank you for all subscribing to this and reading all the work and watching all the work. It means a lot to me. So thank you. All right, let's see. Chase. Had a good draft, but all the teams in the division got better too. Can't wait till we get those young boys on the field. Yeah, again, I'm going to have to look at overall what the Bengals, Ravens, and Browns did. I know the Ravens made a couple notable picks. I saw they took TJ Tampa. So that was a little bit irritating that the Steelers could have taken TJ Tampa and did not. They took Devontae Walker. I saw some people mad about that. Devontae Walker does one thing, and that's run straight. I'm not pressed about Devontae Walker being in Baltimore. He's fast. A lot of guys are fast. He does one thing well. Not worried about Devontae Walker. Oh, whoa. Do we have breaking news here? Is it? Hold on. Somebody, let me do a quick search here. We might have breaking news here. I don't know if that was an opinion or something that's actually happening. No, I don't think so. Yeah, I think it was just an opinion. Rob throwing in Pat Peterson re-signing with Pittsburgh. If I had to guess, I would say that that's somewhat likely. If they don't sign Cam Sutton or like a K'Wan Williams, then yes, I would assume that he's back. I'm not seeing anything about him being signed, though. So, yeah, I was just taking a gander. It wouldn't surprise me, though. I mean, the fact that they came out of this draft with still a need at nickel cornerback, they can kick Patrick Peterson inside to be a nickel. Because remember last year, like, he wasn't good on the perimeter, but when they moved him back to safety and had him do different roles, he played well in the final month of the year when they had him do that. We don't want Peterson back in any way. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't do it personally. I think if they bring him back, it's to have more or less to have him in the room. You know, that's a very young secondary. Joey Porter's going into his second year. Darius Rush, Corey Trice, both going into their second years. Corey Trice still basically a rookie because he tore his ACL last year. Those are 3 of your 4 corners right now. Deontay Jackson's a vet, but that is a young room. Very young room. Let's see. Pearl Jam also added, Russell Wilson won't be here after this year. Yeah, if I had to guess, that's probably true. I think what the Steelers will do, they're going to extend Justin Fields. They're not picking up his option, but they'll extend him. They'll give him like a 2-year deal with an option after 2025. They'll give him an entire year where he knows he's a starter going into the year, and 2025 will be basically like, okay, show us. And I think he's going to have kind of a show us type thing this year too, because I think he is going to start at some point this year. And even if he isn't starting the year as QB1, they're going to have like a Justin Fields package where, 5 to 7 plays a game, he's on the field. So I would agree with that sentiment. I don't think that, and again, I hope Russ does well, but at the same time, you got, a 25, 26-year-old guy who is incredibly dynamic, and you want to see how good he is. I get it. Coach on the field. Yeah, that's basically what Patrick Peterson would be. Like, he's incredibly smart. You can make the case that he's a future Hall of Famer. I mean, he's at his peak, he was tremendous. So I understand why they would bring him back in that regard. Worthy soon. The Wilson versus Fields drama will start for some action. Yeah. I don't think it's going to be drama. I think that the drama will come from the fans, the Team Russ people and the Team Justin Fields people. I don't think there's going to be any drama between Russ and Fields. Just my guess. I think they're both professionals. I think that Russ genuinely wants to help Justin Fields. I think that Russ also recognizes that, like, all right, this is, probably my last stop as a starter, and I think that Russ is overall a good dude and would like to help usher in his heir apparent. I think Russ is a good enough dude to do that. I don't think it's going to be a situation, like Kenny Pickett being salty that a better quarterback's brought in, so he throws a piss fit and then gets traded. Which, by the way, the Steelers turned the pick that they got from the Eagles for Kenny Pickett into Payton Wilson. So basically, they traded Kenny Pickett for Payton Wilson, and that is funny to me. Especially if Payton Wilson turns into like a 6-time All-Pro and it's just a fucking dog. Ugh. We'll look back on that and laugh. Especially because the Eagles stink at linebacker right now. It's just funny. It's just funny. Steelers freak. From the fans, for sure. Yeah, I mean, look, man. People that live in the comment section at Behind the Steel Curtain, I could write something. Half of them will say it's great. They agree. Half of them will say it sucks. I'm an idiot. I could write that same story about the other side. Half of them will say it's great. I'm great. Half of them will say it sucks. I'm an idiot. That's fans of just about any team. It's going to happen. There's going to be people who want Russ. There's going to be people who want Fields. That's just how it is. That's just how it is. Not real excited about Fields and his 68 turnovers. Here's the thing with this. And walk with me for a minute. Turnovers for a quarterback, like just looking at that, incredibly overrated. Because you know who doesn't turn the ball over? Kenny Pickett, and he sucks. You know who hasn't turned the ball over the past few years? Daniel Jones, and he sucks. You know who does have a little bit more turnovers? Josh Allen. He's second best quarterback in the league. Like there's clearly something there with Justin Fields. And yeah, the fumbles are a problem. That's not great. And he has to get better at processing. Absolutely. But would I rather have Justin Fields, who has more turnovers, over a Kenny Pickett who doesn't turn the ball over? Absolutely. Would I rather have him over Daniel Jones? Yeah. Over Desmond Ridder? Yeah. Yeah. Turnovers are, especially in an age where throwing the ball is so important and the quarterback is so important, there's going to be an uptick in turnovers. It's the timeliness of turnovers. Like I did a piece looking at all of Josh Allen's interceptions last year, just because everybody threw a hissy fit about them. Of his 18 interceptions, I came away saying 9 of them were worth anything. It's the timeliness of them. If you throw an interception when you're up 3 touchdowns, yeah, it's still going to go on the stat sheet as an interception, but who gives a shit? You're up 3 touchdowns. He threw an interception against the Commanders, and they beat the piss out of the Commanders that game. It happens. He threw an interception against the Jets in the second game on a Hail Mary at the end of the first half, and they beat the piss out of the Jets that game. Only looking at turnovers in a vacuum, I don't worry too much about them. Now, another thing is if the Bears didn't have the first overall pick from Carolina, they don't trade Justin Fields. Like he's a starting caliber quarterback, but it's just the fact that they had Caleb Williams, who's viewed as such like a star can't miss prospect, that they kind of felt like they had to. But if they don't make that DJ Moore trade last year, where they trade out of number 1, give it to the Panthers for this year's number 1, they're not sitting with the top overall pick, and they don't trade Justin Fields. So, context, When will trades start heating up in the offseason, in your opinion? From here until camp, I mean, it's very random. It could happen in just, the middle of May randomly. We're like, okay, a trade's happened. From here on out, I mean, it's going to be pretty random. I don't think there's going to be like a hot spot of trades. Now, once camp and stuff starts, I think we'll see a couple. We'll see some like right before week 1 starts as well. We saw the Steelers do that twice last year where they traded Kendrick Green and Kevin Dotson. So, but from like here up until like the time before camp, it'll be very few and far between if I had to guess. Yes, but our defense is on the field enough over the past 3 years. More turnovers are not going to help. And yeah, I get it. But again, you got to look at the context with Justin Fields. He was running the ball a lot. So granted, the more you run, you're going to have an uptick in fumbles. That's just correlation, you know. And look at the people that he was throwing the ball to. Like before DJ Moore last year, he had Equinemius St. Brown and Dante Pettis as his top 2 receivers. And Luke Getsy is his offensive coordinator. Who we talk about Matt Canada being the worst offensive coordinator in football. Luke Getsy's probably number 2. So, and this isn't me, making the argument that like Justin Fields is a top 10 quarterback. I'm not. Is he top 20? Maybe. I think there's an argument to be made for that. And again, if he can be the 18th best quarterback and everything else lives up to its potential, the Steelers can win 10, 11 games. They can win 11 games. They won 10 games last year with a bottom 3 quarterback room of football. So I think that Justin Fields can be an effective starter. Not me saying that I think he's elite, but I think that he can be an effective starter. Keaton, does Caleb Williams have the most pressure ever for a rookie looking at the offensive talent he has? No, I think that Lawrence had a lot of pressure because I think that Lawrence was more highly talked about than Caleb Williams was. And he went into just a dog shit situation where he had Urban Meyer. Who were his receivers his rookie year? I genuinely can't remember. Wasn't anybody good. He had a bad situation. Did they sign Christian Kirk that year? They might have. I have to go back and look. But regardless, he had a really bad situation. And he was more talked about than Caleb Williams was. Andrew Luck was more talked about than both of them were. So, is there pressure? Of course there's pressure. I don't think he's the most pressure ever. But he does have a really good foundation around him. I think that Shane Waldron at offensive coordinator, great pairing. And now he has DJ Moore, Roma Dunze, and then Keenan Allen as like that big power slot. That's a good support system to have around a rookie. I think he's going to do well. Plus defensively, like they got guys at all 3 levels that I like. They got Montez Sweat on the defensive line. They have Tremaine Edmonds in the middle of the defense. And then the secondary, I like Jaquan Brisker. Obviously, Jalen Johnson's a stud. They have Tyreek Stevenson. Like they got guys on that side of the ball. So I think that quietly, if the pick pans out, the Bears could be in the wild card hunt and maybe be a sneaky wild card team. I don't think Williams is going to be as good as everyone thinks. It's possible. I think that Drake May is going to be better. That's just my opinion. Do you think any of these quarterbacks we got will be our guy, or no, we draft a guy in the future? I would like to think that Justin Fields is the guy. I really hope he is because I really like Justin Fields. But if he's not, I don't know if it'll be a draft. I think they're going to have a lot of money available next year. And I think that there's a greater than 0 chance. Like if Russell Wilson and Justin Fields both prove they aren't the answer, with all the money that the Steelers have, I think that there's a greater than 0 chance that Dak Prescott, Pittsburgh Steelers 2025 Week 1 starter is a possibility. And I would be very okay with that. And all of you should be too. Because I don't want to hear any of this Dak Prescott, is he an elite quarterback? I don't think so. I think he's the 9th, 10th best quarterback in the league, which is a hell of a lot better than anything the Steelers have had in a very long time. And he's also in an organization where that's, Jerry Jones hasn't really run that very well. He hasn't given Dak Prescott. I mean, Mike Tomlin will be the best head coach he's ever had. I think that Dak in a Steelers uniform, again, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm saying it's possible. Greater than 0 chance that it would happen. I think he ends up in Miami, personally, because I think that the Dolphins are just going to hit their head on the wild card ceiling again and get eliminated right away and realize, okay, we cannot pay Tua Tagovailoa. We'll go get Dak Prescott. So, Pearl Jam adds they would need a 3-14 season to get their future quarterback. In the draft, yeah. But again, if Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, even if they have a season similar to last year where they get into the playoffs or a 10-win team or a 9-win team, but the quarterbacks are both clearly not good, there's a good chance that they won't be there next year. And again, I think that there's a very real situation where if that is the case and the Steelers don't want Russell Wilson or Justin Fields next year, there's a perfectly good Dak Prescott right there. There's a top 10 quarterback right there. You know how often those hit the free agent market? Not very. So I wouldn't mind them going down the Dak Prescott train. Obviously, he has his flaws. I want to see him win a big playoff game. If he did that, that would give me a lot more confidence in Dak Prescott. But here's the thing with that. You know how many playoff games Matthew Stafford won before he went to the Rams? None. You know what he did the first year that he was with the Rams? Won the Super Bowl. So, there's are things that need to be talked about as well. Jonathan, I could see Dak in Pittsburgh as a possibility. Solid draft by Pittsburgh. Payton Wilson is a definite slam dunk. I think Payton Wilson's going to be awesome. Very happy that he's a Steeler. And and again, a lot of things there's a few dominoes that have to fall for Dak Prescott to be a Steeler. I don't think he's going to resign in Dallas. So I think that he'll be the big storyline of next offseason is going to be where's Dak Prescott going to go? Because I don't think he's going to be a Cowboy. 9-8 or 10-7 doesn't get you a top pick, and it doesn't get you to a Super Bowl. Yeah, no, I agree. We're agreeing, Pearl Jam. Like, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm saying that if they go 10-7 and it's clear that the quarterbacks aren't good, Dak Prescott could be an avenue that's looked at. And if that's the case, with Dak Prescott in this roster, you can be a 12-13 win team. The Cowboys with worse rosters have been 12-13 win teams. Hell, with this roster, you put Dak Prescott at quarterback, I think the Steelers should be the number 1 seed in the AFC. He would be awesome. Now, when they get to the playoffs, would I be nervous? Yeah, because we haven't seen Dak Prescott win a big playoff game yet. We've seen him win playoff games, but haven't got past that divisional round. So would I be nervous? Yeah. But I would much rather have Dak Prescott on this roster, knowing that there's a chance that they get to the Super Bowl over, restarting again. They got this roster that could very well be in win now mode if they get a guy like Dak Prescott. But again, that's a conversation for next year, for at the end of the season. That was just me floating something out there. I kind of regret doing it. Everybody's mad at me now. But, all right, guys, look. I'm going to call it. I'm going to take a shower. I'm going to lay in bed. The past 3 days have been very hectic. If you're not already, and like I said, if you like the Steelers content, I'm going to do at least one of these a week. I did one every day for the past few days because obviously it was the draft. If you would like at least 2 a week throughout the offseason just so we could come in here and chat, absolutely, I will do more than one. In terms of the pump fake, I'm only going to do one of those, though. So one edition of my national podcast, The Pump Fake, which you can watch here or you can listen to wherever you get your podcasts. I'll do at least one Steelers stream. And again, these seem to go really well, and you guys seem to really enjoy the conversation. So if you want me to uptick it to like a Monday and like a Thursday that we do Steelers streams, do the Black and Gold Breakdown show, I can do that. And again, let me know real quick if you can in the comments. Worthy, I saw your comments. If you would be interested in having extra content through a paid tier where when I have players on, when I have different media on, you can submit your questions that you want asked and they'll get asked on the show. I'll do extra shows just for the people in the paid tier. If that's something that you'd be interested in, absolutely I will do it. If it doesn't get enough interest, I'm not going to force it on you. But if it's something that people would be interested in, absolutely I'll do it. But again, not going to force it. Thanks to everybody for liking, subscribing, commenting, all that fun YouTube stuff. If you want to leave a super chat, you can do that now. Again, not going to force you to give me your money. But if you like the content I do, both on here my written work for USA Today, and the Steelers coverage at Behind the Steel Curtain, where I'm the deputy editor. So much NFL content from me, and I appreciate y'all for keeping up with it, especially over the past few days. I mean, the channel's got a ton more subscribers, and I've really started just putting effort into this over the last year. So figuring out the YouTube stuff over the past few weeks has been pretty cool. Having, consistent chats has been really cool. So if you're not already subscribed, please do so. And what day is it? It's Saturday, right? It is Saturday. So I'll do another one of these, let's say on Tuesday, Monday or Tuesday. And again, subscribe to get all the updates, turn on the bell. Was it the bell thingy? See, I don't know all about this YouTube stuff in terms of running it. But if you want to know whenever these do take place, make sure that the notifications are turned on. And again, I appreciate you guys. I'm sorry if I sound tired. It's because I am tired. It's been a hectic few days, but I appreciate you guys keeping up with all the content. So have a good night. And I'm looking forward to talking Steelers, talking NFL with all of you as the offseason keeps going. And making our march toward training camp, which, by the way, daily reports from Latrobe on this very channel. If that's something that sounds interesting to you, please subscribe. Just finding every way that I can to make you subscribe, just make you interested and keep you around, because I'll be at Latrobe for training camp. And I'll do reports from every day that I'm there on here as well. So tons and tons and tons of content. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. I will see you next week at some point, both for the pump fake, both for the black and gold breakdown, and then you can catch a few of the clips that I'll put out from the show, from each show on the YouTube channel. So appreciate you guys. Have a really good night, and I will talk to you soon.